conversation. We welcome in our good friend, does a wonderful job covering the Philadelphia 76ers as editor for the Sixers Wire for USA Today and co-host of the Bell Ringer podcast. That, of course, is Ky Carlin, at Ky_Carlin. And by the way, it's just Ky. That's it. K-Y Ky, not Kyle, as we learned from his other social media post.
Yeah, it bothers me, man. I don't understand how people just, it's just two letters. That's all it is. Two letters. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, that's just a sign. Just tell him, look, it's Ky. Don't add anything. I don't get it. It clearly states it right there. I've seen you in person. I know it's two letters.
Right. It's not that hard. I don't understand why people continue to mess my name up. But thankfully, Rich, you get it right every time.
Well, listen, I get a couple things right. And we called Ben Simmons. I mean, is it going to be a taxi? Is it going to be an Uber? You think they're going to shuttle him out in a limo? Is this surprising to you at all that he's just decided these reports that, you know what, get me the hell out of town. I'm not reporting the training camp. I don't want to be here anymore.
I'm actually surprised that Rich Paul and Clutch, they waited so long to do this. I thought it would be once the Sixers announced that they were taking trade calls on Simmons that Clutch would come out and be like, oh, yeah, get him out of here. He doesn't want to be here anymore. You know what I'm saying? I thought for sure that would be the case. However, the fact that it's coming out now is not very surprising because now we have, what's today? Today's August 31st.
Yep.
Training camp is set to begin in 4 weeks,
wow.
September 28th. And I've kind of maintained this a little bit. I've said this in other articles. I've said this on the podcast even a couple of times. I do think Simmons is going to be traded before opening night. I've said it in my heart of hearts. I know you and I were kind of talking about it last time I was on that maybe they are going to keep him. But, I mean, I thought maybe around training camp, that around the time training camp starts, that we will see some type of movement, whether, it be Simmons or whoever. And it does appear now that Simmons has told the organization that he wants out, that this is going to be the route that they're going to go. Then we'll be moved for opening night. I've been saying it since the Game 7 loss. It doesn't appear. This does hurt the Sixers now, though, Rich, because now the Sixers have almost no leverage in any of these deals. Because now Ben is like, get me the hell out of here. Now, listen, they could fine Simmons. They could absolutely fine Simmons for not showing up to training camp. It's not going to matter because Ben's got so much money. It's not a matter of money at this point. And also, you don't want to, mess with the feathers of Rich Paul, who represents a who's who of clients, and you don't want to mess with that either. So the Sixers are definitely in a lose situation there.
It's a great point you bring up. He's got 4 years and $147 million left on his deal, which you documented on Sixers Wire. So, again, you're right. It doesn't matter. It's not a matter of losing the money at this point. But here's the other thing, right? If you kind of ruffle the feathers, then you have to worry about dealing with Rich Paul and his potential clients going forward. And also, you know how these agents can be, right? I mean, they're going to try to stick it to you as best as possible. And now, I'm wondering, I hate playing Monday morning quarterbacking or Tuesday, if you will, but, when was the ideal time in your mind, if we have to just go back because we can't unring the bell, what would have been the ideal moment where you said, this is the day, this is the moment, right now, they should have traded Ben Simmons?
Probably after Game 7. Like that's kind of when I started thinking about that. Because I'm telling you, the fact that Ben now is looking like it's going to be his final game in Philadelphia. As soon as he passed up the dunk, Rich, as soon as he passed up the dunk, I said, oh, yeah, he's gone. You have to move him. You can't bring him back. And the only way you could even think about even bringing him back is if he was actually going to put in work, and come back with some type of a jump shot. Because, again, Rich, we have seen these same stupid videos over and over again of Ben Simmons working on the jump shot. Yeah. He's in the gym. He's bringing up a jump shot. And yet, Rich, on opening night, whoever team he's going to be with, he's probably not going to shoot any jump shots.
No.
So a lot of these videos are just kind of, it's like, okay, cool, you're working on them, but you refuse to bring it out in a game. And, Rich, that doesn't just hold him back. That holds the Sixers back, too. Because as great as Ben Simmons is, in my opinion, he's already a top 25 player. I mean, let me take that back. He's probably top 30 at this point. But that's still really good. If you just added some type of a jump shot, he immediately goes from the back end of the top 30 to jumping in the top 15. Like, that's how talented this kid is. But it really seems to me, Rich, he really doesn't have the work ethic or the mindset to go after it.
He doesn't, and that's the problem. You nailed it. You nailed it. He does it, right. It's all about the ticker. It's not innate. He doesn't have the killer instinct. He doesn't want to be great. I got slammed when I came on the air after Game 7, and I think we had this conversation. You and I went back and forth, and I've had other NBA guys. I've gone the same route with them. So forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but after that Game 7 loss, we saw the demeanor during the post game. But if I was Doc Rivers that next day, while the wound is still fresh, I would have sat him down, looked at him eye to eye, man to man, and said, do you want to be great? And if he hesitated, if there was any inkling of reservation in his answer, in his tone, in his diction, I walk out of that meeting saying, we need to get rid of this guy ASAP. Because I'm giving you all the outs to prove me, to show me I'm wrong. And you can have justified it by sitting there and not doing anything, which he most likely would have done, because that's exactly who he is. He's 25. He's a young guy. He's a good-looking guy. He's well-schooled, well-educated, well-traveled, well-cultured. But you're right. He doesn't have that, you need a little street in you, and he doesn't have that killer instinct. And I don't care where he goes. This is probably what you're going to get for the rest of his career, which might last another 8, 9, 10 years. It's always going to be, man, imagine if this guy would have developed a little bit of a shot. And people get so goofy over it. No. If you develop a 12, 13, 14-foot jumper, you know this from covering the game. At least you can draw the defense in. Then you can get the low man. You get the big man on the low block. You can get Embiid more. You can pick and roll. You can take him off the dribble. You can do whatever you want to do. But it's just this reluctance to not want to be a better player. And for me, that speaks volumes. That's why I would have no problem getting rid of him. And, you might not get back what you wanted to. And that's a shame, but that's what happens when it plays out like this.
Yeah, it's really an unfortunate situation, because I feel like when we're going to look back on the Ben Simmons era in Philadelphia, we're going to look at a player who is one of the elite defenders in the NBA. He is a guy who can set up his teammates and make the game so much easier for his teammates. But there's this one thing that continues to hold him back, and he's heard it for the past, Rich, he's been here for 4 years now. He has heard the same narrative about him for 4 years, that the jump shot and the lack of offense and even the free throw shooting. I mean, he shot 34.2% from the free throw line in the playoffs. You can't excuse that. And the fact that, that affected his aggressiveness, and he wasn't able to get to the basket, and he passed up an open dunk because he was afraid of getting fouled. That continues to be a really big thing for him. And I think you just kind of mentioned that you hit the nail on the head. Like, if he doesn't change his mindset and change his heart and want to be great, then this is all he's going to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we've seen the kind of capped out on the Ben Simmons situation in his career so far. He is who he is at this point.
And here's the thing, right? The player, at the end of the day, they just want out, right? So it's almost as though, and by the way, this is nothing new, but the Eagles did announce that Hurts is team starting quarterback. All right, just throwing that out there. He's the starter. All right, but again, this is Philly. We know things change. Back to the hoops talk. If you're the Sixers and you're trying to ship him out, now you're almost like, all right, are we a motivated seller here? Can we get a motivated buyer? Because you're trying to get good return, right? Good value back on potentially trading him. And as you alluded to, they don't have that leverage right now. So where would be the best case scenario in your estimation, the best spot for Simmons, and what do you think they can get in return right now, knowing that he's disgruntled and most likely he's not going to show up for camp?
Well, I do know he does prefer to go to the California teams. A Western Conference executive reported that Ben would rather head out to California, considering he works out in Los Angeles all the time. That's not a surprise. So I'm sure the Lakers and the Clippers will probably be on that list. You'll probably see the Golden State Warriors on that list. The one team, the thing is, the Western Conference executive, he mentioned 3 California teams, not 4. So the one team that's probably out of that is the Sacramento Kings. And I'm sure the Sixers would have liked to maybe hit up Sacramento and be like, okay, well, you want for De'Aaron Fox or Tyrese Halliburton, or maybe a guy like Buddy Hield, like something like that. Because I really don't know what you can get from the Lakers, Clippers, and Warriors. You know what I'm saying? It's not like the Lakers are going to give you LeBron James or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no you don't want Russell Westbrook. You don't want they're not going to get Anthony Davis. So it's like that scratches the Lakers out. Then you've got the Clippers, and the Clippers aren't going to give you Kawhi, Paul George, or any of their big names. So that scratches them out. And then you look at the Warriors, and the Warriors make sense. I mean, the Golden State could definitely use somebody to move the ball to Steph and Clay. But I'm not trading Ben Simmons for Draymond Green.
No,
and you can't have Ben and Draymond on the same team. And just, if I'm Daryl Morey, I'm not settling for Draymond Green. And then I don't like Andrew Wiggins as a return. I'm not really big on James Wiseman either. So I really don't know what the California teams can even offer, because it's not going to be Steph and Clay. He's not going to be one of those guys. So it's definitely going to be very interesting. I'm not really sure what they can even get from him at this point. I know the Minnesota Timberwolves are a team that really wants Simmons, but you're not trading Ben Simmons for D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, and Jaden McDaniels, who are three fine players, but they're not worth Ben Simmons. This is a tough situation that Philadelphia finds themselves in, and it sucks for Daryl Morey. The second year with the team, that he's going to have to try to finagle his way to try to get an all-star for Simmons, when really they want Damian Lillard, but Lillard's not going to be available in Portland because he has to request a trade, and the Blazers aren't going to make him available. There's a lot of issues that the Sixers are going to have to address over the next couple of weeks. You better buckle up. There's going to be a lot going on.
Yeah, and there's, with that, sometimes what happens, right, there's a lot of collateral damage, too. I mean, at the end, when you think about this, ultimately, they tried to trade Simmons in the past to the Rockets, right, before the James Harden was dealt to the Brooklyn Nets, and I kind of scoffed at it at the time, and I guess now, hindsight's 2020. You're probably thinking, oh man, wish that deal would have got done, and their hands are tied. I mean, now you got a real malcontent here, right? I mean, it's one thing to just to a man by yourself or in your circle say, you know what, I just hope they trade me. But to now, and there's a reason reports are leaked like this, right? Because it adds a little fuel to the fire. You want more of a push to get out of town, but I would have just, and this is not Ben Simmons, this is me, I would have basically just quietly have gone to the brass and say, look, it's not going to work out. Just try to get me out of here, right? I'll show up to training camp. I'll try to be the good trooper, blah, blah, blah. But that's not the route in today's NBA, and that's really not the route in today's sport that these players go. So I guess what I'm trying to say, he could have kind of been a little more silent and quiet. Maybe they could have got him out of here. But now you're looking at his trade value, and you're dealing with a malcontent. And like I said, I had this conversation years ago in the Air Ky when we were talking about Kawhi Leonard and the fact that they had to go and bring pizzas to a house and do this and that and the other thing. I mean, this is a bad look for the Sixers right now because deep down they're not going to get the value they want back in return for Simmons.
No, not at all. Like I said, Sixers are in a really tough situation. They're kind of screwed, if you really want to kind of look at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're kind of screwed at this point. And now it's like, if Simmons doesn't show up to camp, which all indications say that he's not going to, you're going to have to try to pretty much get the team together and try to rally them up. And here's another question that kind of gets brought up, Rich. It kind of popped in my mind. What about Tyrese Maxey, who is also represented by Rich Paul? Like, maybe if the Sixers don't handle this whole Simmons situation well, maybe Paul's like, okay, well, I want Maxey out of Philadelphia too. So, Rich Paul is a guy, he's ruthless. He's one of the more ruthless agents in the league. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to really see what happens with this team. I'm telling you, buckle up. Just buckle up, because now there's going to be a lot of back and forth. There's going to be a lot of reports over the next couple of weeks. And you know what, Rich? This sucks because I'm in Florida right now trying to enjoy some time with my mother for the week, right? And then the Sixers, they get bombarded. They bombard me with all this Ben Simmons stuff, and now, I'm busy with articles and stuff. So they just had to drop this during this week, right?
Of course, right? It's so funny you said that because I mentioned during the monologue, and I appreciate you giving me a couple moments as always, pal. But I said it during the monologue, like leave it to the Sixers to drop news when you have so much going on in the NFL with roster cuts and everything. And it's a great point. I didn't even think about that you brought up the parallel with these current players as well. And I want to leave you with this, and we can only speculate, but man, I'm wondering what Embiid's thinking. I'm wondering what Doc is thinking. I'm wondering what those players are thinking because they know he flat out quit on them. Ben Ben Simmons quit. He just decided, I'm going to take my ball and go home. It's not going to be a fit. I don't want to be here. Can you imagine if this really kind of implodes the whole organization?
I don't know if it's going to implode the whole organization. I mean, listen, Joel and Doc said what they had to say after Game 7, and they were correct quotes. Let's not pretend that Joel and Doc were so outlandish. I mean, Joel was asked, what was the turning point? Joel said, well, we passed up a dunk, and they scored a 3. Okay? So I mean, what's Joel supposed to say there? I mean, he said the truth.
Yeah.
Doc, hey, Doc, can you win with Ben as your point guard? I don't have that answer right now. Like those questions and those quotes are honest quotes. It's not like what they said was anything out of line, out of pocket.
That's true.
And Doc saying Ben needs to get back in the gym. Well, I mean, obviously he needs to get back in the gym because there's a lot of flaws in his game for as talented as he is. So, the thing is, Ben got his feelings hurt, and I think that goes back to what you and I were talking about. He doesn't have the mental toughness to really take the next step forward in this league. If he's going to be hurt by what Joel and Doc said after Game 7, that tells me all I need to know. It's like I don't think you have it. I don't think you have what it takes to really be that superstar in the NBA. Because, I mean, guys like LeBron, Jordan, Kobe, Shaq, they all heard worse than that.
That's right. And now you're talking all-time greats, right? That won championships and MVPs, and they're going to be immortalized or go into the Hall of Fame. And they were able to overcome it. You're right. So I'll allow you to have the last word, which I think was apropos because you hit the nail right on the head. What's the weather like? What part of Florida, if you don't mind me asking?
Fort Pierce.
Where's that?
It's on the east coast of Florida. It's about 3 hours away from Miami. So,
Oh, you take a car or did you fly?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not doing this drive.
Do you have access to a car to make a trek to Miami?
I'm not going to Miami, Rich. I do have a rental car. I'm not making the trip down there. I can promise you that.
I would have told you to stop off at a legendary place called the Big Pink.
Oh, the Sixers are in Miami January 15th, so that's when I'll take my trip down there.
You know, it's just like Simmons, the excuses. I can't take them anymore. All right. All right, my friend. Listen, outstanding stuff. I greatly appreciate a couple moments. Enjoy the weather down there. Have fun, and we'll talk when you get back up here.
Sounds good, Rich. I appreciate it.
All right, you got it. Our guy, there you have it, Ky Carlin. Quick timeout. Sports Flash time, 4:37.